Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Sedgemoor District's Licensing and Gambling Panel today on Thursday, the 24th of September. I'll now hand over to the committee manager, Mr. Steve Taylor.
Okay, this meeting is being held under the recent government regulations brought in to allow for remote meetings to take place and for decisions to be made. Hopefully those present will hear the meeting. However, in the event of a technical failure, the chairman will adjourn the panel and set a new time to reinstate the meeting. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and a copy of the recording will be available on the Council's YouTube channel in the next few days. All attendees should have their video on, if possible, but will remain muted until invited to speak. If you wish to attract the Chairman's attention, please, if you're able, make use of the instant messaging function. All members of the press and public will remain muted. And the format of the meeting will be as per the agenda published. Over to you, Chairman.
Lovely. Thank you very much. And we'll just run through the agenda very briefly because it's not big. So we'll start with agenda item number 1, which is apologies.
There are no apologies, Chairman.
2, declarations of interest. Don't think we've got any, have we?
No, I have none.
No, okay. And 3 is today we're here for All Stars Bowl. We're here to consider an application for a new premises license in respect of All Stars Bowl. First floor premises 5 Northgate Leisure Development in Bridgewater, following objections having been received. I'm just going to do the quick formalities now because I need to just check that everybody can see and hear me. So I'll start obviously with myself and we'll introduce ourselves. I am Councillor Polly Costello. I am a ward member for Wedmore and Mark, and I am the chairman of the licensing committee. Councillor Crowe, can you see and hear me?
I can see and hear you, Chairman, and I represent Puriton and Woolhavington, and I'm Vice Chair of the Licensing and Panel Committee.
Thank you very much. Councillor Glassford.
Yes, I can see and hear you. I represent the ward of Fairfax Ward.
Lovely, thank you very much. Now we go to the applicants. I've got Matthew Phipps. Are you there, Matthew?
Unmuting myself and
Lovely.
trying to start my video. Yes, good morning, Councillor or Councillors. Yes, I'm here and I can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've got Pete Wallington. Are you there, Pete?
I am just unmuting myself. Hi.
Lovely.
Yes, I'm Pete Wallington. I'm the owner of All Stars and the director, basically. And yeah, I'm here.
And you can see me and hear me. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Next one, I've got Rich Heel. Rich, are you there?
I can't see Mr. Heel there at the moment, Chairman.
Okay.
Chair, we don't need to wait for Mr. Heel. He's a colleague of Mr. Wallington's. I invited him into the call in case he wanted to come, but don't feel the need to delay for his arrival.
Okay, fine. Well, if he comes in, we'll say hello to him then. And then I've got Ellie Nicole Davies.
Good morning, councillors. I can hear you, and I'm here in an observing capacity.
Lovely, thank you very much. Objectors, Caroline Story.
Yeah, it's Caroline Leavy,
Oh,
not
Caroline
Story.
Leavy.
That's my old name.
Oh, we'll have a new one. Forgive me if I keep forgetting it because my brain's a bit like that today. Brilliant. You can hear us and see us, correct? Are you on the
Yes.
phone? Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Mark Innes.
I'll just unmute Mark a minute. Can you hear us, Mark?
Hello, yes, I'm able to hear what's going on.
Brilliant. And next I have Martin Robbins.
Yeah, I'm here.
Brilliant. Thank you. Officers. Mr. Weldon, are you here? And can you hear and see us?
Good morning,
How are
Chair.
you?
Yes, I am the Licensing and Fraud Manager for Sedgemoor District Council, and I can confirm I can both see and hear you. Thank you.
Super duper. Mr. Osborne.
Good morning, Chair. Yes, Nigel Osborne, Legal Advisor to the panel, and I can confirm that I can see and hear everything.
Super, thank you. Miss Webber.
Hi, Emily Webber, and I'm the legal apprentice for the council, and I confirm that I can see and hear you.
Super. And finally, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I can confirm I can see and hear you.
Very good. Thank you very much, everybody. Right, now we'll crack on. So, Mr. Weldon, would you like to please present your report?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. Good morning, everybody. The matter before the panel today is, of course, to consider an application for a new premises licence in accordance with the Licensing Act 2003. In terms of background, on the 30th of July this year, an application for the new premises licence was made in respect of All Stars Bowl, first floor premises, 5 Northgate Leisure Development, Bridgewater, Somerset, and was received from Mr. Matthew Phipps of TLT Solicitors on behalf of the applicant, All Stars Taunton Limited. The application in respect of a premises that is yet to be built is described as a 10-pin bowling centre and will form part of the redevelopment of the Northgate area in Bridgewater. As you will see, the application seeks authorisation for the following licensable activities. Indoor sporting events, 0900 to 030 hours, Monday to Friday, and 0900 to 0130 hours Saturday and Sunday. The provision of live music, 0900 to midnight 30 hours Monday to Friday, 0900 to 0130 hours Saturday, and 0900 to 0100 hours on Sunday. The provision of recorded music is next from 0900 to midnight 30 hours Monday to Friday, 0900 to 0130 hours Saturday and Sunday. The performance of dance has, I believe, the same hours as I've just quoted for recorded music. Anything of a similar description, also the same. And the provision of late night refreshment from 2300 to midnight 30 hours Monday to Friday, and 2300 to 0130 hours Saturday and Sunday. Finally, self-supply of alcohol from 0900 to midnight 30 hours Monday to Friday, and 0900 to 0130 hours Saturday and Sunday. And this is for the consumption of alcohol both on and off the premises. You will notice that there are non-standard timings which have been requested as follows. On a Sunday prior to a bank holiday Monday, the provision of all the aforementioned licensable activities from 0900 to 0130 hours, and on no more than 12 occasions a year, the premises may remain open for the provision of all licensable activities until 0200 on no less than 14 days notice being given to the police. You will see a redacted copy of the application, a plan of the premises itself, and a copy of the applicant's operating schedule attached to appendices A, B and C respectively. A note on Appendix C, this of course represents the applicant's his intentions on how he will operate the premises in accordance with the Licensing Act, and as you know, is wording that can form conditions on any subsequently granted licence. A map of the site is included as Appendix D. I imagine that most people are familiar with the site, but if I can refer you to Appendix D, please, if the wonders of technology allow for that. Mine is loading, so I hope everybody can see. If you were to obviously drive out of the members' car park of Bridgewater House and turn left within 100 to 150 metres, on the right-hand side you will come across the site in question, which of course is the former site of Sedgemoor Splash and is currently a level car park. You will see from Appendix D, in terms of the closest residential premises, they would be on your left-hand side of the map, which represents Blacklands, which runs into Camden Road beyond the map in question here. And the road at the top of the plan represents Anson Way and Bridgewater Docks beyond that. Bear with me, sorry. Here we go. Right, thank goodness the report's reloaded. The current position is that objections to the application have been received within the permitted time frame from local residents. The objectors are listed below next to the relevant appendix for each submission. Mark Innells listed as Appendix E, Kelvin Millis as Appendix F, Karen Pearson as Appendix G, Lindsay Webb as Appendix H, and Caroline Leavy as Appendix I, listed as Caroline's story. Apologies on that one. Collectively, as you will see, the objections touch on all of the licensing objectives, with most referring to the prevention of public nuisance. The final appendix is where the police have agreed a set of conditions with the applicant for inclusion with any granted license. These are shown as Appendix J. Couple of things to say about Appendix J. Apologies, on your copy it may well, when you open the document, list as Appendix L. I can confirm that Appendix L and Appendix J are one and the same document. The reason the document you have is listed as L is that originally when this report was drafted, there was another objection, and that was subsequently withdrawn, which means that L became J. So apologies on that. The second you will see is it's a remarkable similarity to Appendix C, and that's because Appendix C, the original operating schedule, was used as the agreed position between subsequently in discussions between the applicant and the police. So Appendix J forms the amended and agreed version. So for want of simplicity, Appendix C is the situation before as the application was made, and Appendix J constitutes the position after, following consultation between the police and the applicant. In terms of the options for the panel today, 1, to grant the application as applied for, 2, to grant the application with attached conditions, 3, to grant the application in part, 4, to grant the application in part with attached conditions, 5, to refuse the application. That concludes my report today, unless of course there are any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weldon. Are there any questions? No. Okay, super. And then we'll crack on now for the applicants. Would you please like to present your application?
Thank you very much. Oh, sorry, I'm trying to start the video. I don't know if that's important. Sorry, it doesn't seem to click in. Well, look, I'm sorry, I don't seem to be having much luck with the video at this end. Do you mind if I just present to the slightly blank screen? Apologies for that. If it...
No, don't worry, we'll just imagine what you look like.
Well, it's probably doing me a favour, frankly, Councillor, not having the video kicking in. Do you mind? I ought to just ask one question. Forgive me, and just before I start, I got the list of objectors from Mr. Weldon, and he took us through the various names. And I see Caroline Leavy is agenda item I, and Mark is agenda item E. But there was a reference to a Mr. Robbins, Martin Robbins, and I'm sorry to say I missed who he was, because I don't see him as an objector.
Yeah, I'm that number 2 Blacklands, opposite Mark at number 1. So Mark, I think, contacted Steve to ask if I could attend the call. So I think
I just clarify. I think I did explain to Mr. Innes that Mr. Robbins could attend and support his application, but obviously he'll be supporting Mr. Innes' objection, not adding any new information as such. So he's there just to support Mr. Innes, who can't get in. Yeah.
He's not a representative. He's just here in support of Mr. Innes.
Yes, to speak on his behalf if required. Yes.
Yes, thank you. So, councillors, there was a document that was circulated a few days ago where I did my best just to try and set out what I was looking to focus on in terms of submissions. I don't know if it was an email sent 1:18 on the 22nd of September. I'm hoping everyone has had a chance to see that.
Yep, I certainly have.
Okay, great. Well, look, just using that then as the structure, if I may, and I'm for the moment presuming that your colleagues have. This is an application for a bowling premises. As Mr. Weldon has set out, it's part of the Northgate redevelopment, and was circulated yesterday some additional larger scale development plans that your officers thought would be helpful. Effectively, we are the first floor unit over 4 restaurants as part of the development, and on the other side of the car park, as you'll be aware, is a 7-screen cinema that I think already has the benefit of a license, or is anticipating getting a license, with 2 luxury screens and permissions for midnight screenings and that sort of thing. This effectively is a leisure development and scheme of which we are a part. We would like to think that we're a significant part, and our application, we say, is completely in line with what you would expect for a bowling premises anywhere in England and Wales, and in line with what was proposed premises in England since 2001, has a number of existing units which operate well. Obviously, the current COVID position and the summer that we've had, makes for a slightly bumpy ride in the leisure and hospitality world. But these premises are operating well, and we don't believe there's anything that can fairly be said against those businesses. They're certainly not subject to any licensing enforcement or review. The hours of operation are suggested to be excessive. I'm afraid we don't agree with that. They are perfectly proper and proportionate for a business of this sort. The premises will not necessarily operate every last minute and every last hour of the application period, but they certainly will do at certain points within the year, most obviously summer holidays, Christmas periods, Easter, and so forth. There is a comprehensive operating schedule. That operating schedule is contained within your papers and is Appendix L. That is a document that was drawn up with the Avon and Somerset Constabulary, who submitted an initial representation. We then had a dialogue and discussion with them, and effectively our operating schedule was revised in line with the document that's in front of you. I'll not read it. I hope you'll be frankly pleased that I don't read it. I'll leave that with you, but I'll just highlight a couple of important conditions. Firstly, and significantly, the premises must operate as a 10-pin bowling centre with ancillary bar and catering facilities. If there is any suggestion that what's being created here is a large high-volume vertical drinking bar, that just wouldn't be right. There's a comprehensive CCTV proposal. There's door staff conditions as and when they come to be employed, reference to the licensee's radio system, pub watch, membership, and abiding by any banning list, dialogue with officers and entry freely provided, incident books, training for staff, challenge 25 policy for those underage, and that anybody who appears to be under the age of 25 must be challenged to produce photographic ID, no unaccompanied 18-year-olds on the premises after 10 p.m, clear signage, no bottling out late at night, to protect against noise, nuisance and disturbance, and shatterproof and other sensible glass being used within the venue. The police, as you'll be aware, are your lead in terms of all crime and disorder issues, and the service of the representation and the subsequent withdrawal following agreement with ourselves on the operating schedule, we say is very significant, and appreciate that there will be raised issues of crime and disorder by the two representors today and by the three who've also written in, but respectfully, we don't accept that the concerns that are identified are legitimate basis on which to refuse or moderate the application as it's currently submitted. Additionally, your other primary lead on issues of nuisance, your environmental health team, engaged in a dialogue with us, served a representation, and then I think it's right that following a sense of the conditions that were proposed with the police, have themselves withdrawn, and the lack of a representation from them is also, we say, very significant. As the national guidance makes plain, they are the primary source of evidence for issues of noise, nuisance and disturbance, and I'd ask you to bear that in mind when you come to hear from the residents. The residents obviously will speak for themselves, but there are comments about concerns about the way in which the area is currently blighted by late night noise and crime in its simplest format. And obviously I'm not here on behalf of the developer. What we say is that this application will actively promote the licensing objectives, as will the development as a whole. As I understand it, the premises is currently a car park. We believe that the development of the whole will be very much a positive force for good within Bridgewater. I mean, generally, but that's not the point of today in the context of the licensing objectives. The proposal is, I hope, reasonably transparent. It's never really been my view that these hearings are particularly improved by applicants prattling on. Normally the questions tend to draw out the points of particular concerns. They're subject to any questions that you may have. That's probably all. We believe it's a good application. Police and environmental health and all the responsible authorities seem to agree. We're respectful of the fact that there are concerns articulated by residents, but I'm afraid that's not the basis on which the application should be refused.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Mr. Phipps. Has anybody out there got some questions for Mr. Phipps at this stage?
If I may, through chair, just ask Mr. Phipps, do you know as yet how many people you'll be licensed for on your premises at one time?
No, Councillor, I can't pretend that I do. That will be a fire risk assessment that'll need to be carried out as the premises comes to be constructed. But you will see that there are a number of lanes within the plan. Let me give you the right.
There's 8 of them, yes, I've seen the plans.
Yes, 8. And effectively you have 6 people can play to a lane.
Yeah.
So, forgive me. Turn that off. You have 6 people to a lane. Reasonable to presume that you'll also have some people, obviously, in the bar and the food area. There's obviously the possibility that people will be waiting to come on to play as well. So we're looking at 100 or so, probably more, in terms of the fire risk perspective. But realistically, probably about 100, I would have thought.
Okay. The other thing, if I may ask you, sir, is will you be admitting people purely onto the premises for drinking, or will they have to be part of either eating or actually competing in the bowling?
No, you're perfectly able to come to the premises for a drink, and you can equally come food. You can come and watch. Not everybody plays who comes, but the primary activity, the focus of the premises is the bowling. But you won't be prohibited from entering the premises if you're not playing.
Okay, thank you so much indeed. Thank you.
Any other questions out there?
Can I just ask why he doesn't seem to think that it's important how the residents feel, and it shouldn't really be listened to, and that shouldn't be taken into consideration for how we as residents feel having that nearby?
Yes, forgive me. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be listened to. It's an important part of the process that you have the opportunity to voice your concerns. But my point is that having read the concerns that are articulated in the representation, my effectively legal submissions to the committee is that respectfully there isn't enough in those comments to allow them to conclude that the application shouldn't be granted as applied for. A number of the representations when they were first submitted to the committee services, 3 of the 5 were written back to by the licensing authority to explain that the matters that were raised didn't attend to licensing considerations, the licensing objectives, and effectively were asked to write back to identify licensing concerns.
Those people. I was one
that
of those.
in and of its Yes, so that in and of itself says something about the concerns that were first raised. They're not concerns on the first submission and first attempt to articulate the concerns that could legally be of concern to the licensing councillors. I'm afraid there's no other way past it.
Yeah, can I just ask a question? Yeah, so earlier you said the intention is not to create a late night drinking venue in the middle of the town, and then subsequently there's no conditions that people do have to do anything other than come for a drink. So, you know, is it reasonable to anticipate that, or could there be conditions attached that people attending for bowling that want to consume alcohol as part of a leisure activity, not specifically aimed at consuming alcohol? You could, why don't we consider attaching a condition that limits the consumption of alcohol to people participating in other events? Otherwise, my contention is that given the proximity to other drinking establishments that are proximate, people will gravitate towards that as the last place of access to alcohol in the middle of the town.
Yeah, I mean, we simply don't accept that. First of all, the premises is clearly laid out as a bowling venue. There's nothing to support the contention that bowling venues become late night drinking venues anywhere else in the country, and there's nothing before the committee to suggest that. We certainly do not want a restriction that people coming to these. Sorry, may I finish?
Yeah, sure, please.
Thanks. It is that we certainly don't want a restriction that people coming to the premises have to bowl or have to be involved in the bowling. It is absolutely right, as you've identified, that technically there is a risk that people will be in the premises having a drink later at night without playing bowls or without eating. And candidly, what we say about that is there's absolutely nothing wrong with that at all. What there is something wrong with is people behaving poorly, arriving and departing, not being suitably controlled and managed in the premises, such that the licensing objectives are undermined. And it's not our view, and it's not our experience, and candidly there's no evidence to suggest that that is what will happen simply because we're allowing people to have a drink if they want to have one.
Can I ask another question then? As the council considered, because you reference a number of other establishments, and I'm familiar with the one at Taunton, which is significantly more remote from the centre of town and significantly more remote from other proximate drinking venues where people will be taking.
Sorry, Mr. Robin. Sorry, Mr. Robin. You can only refer to the representation that you are speaking to, which obviously isn't your own. And I'm sure the legal officer will step in a moment to explain. But you're here, as I understand it, to support Mr. Innes, and so it's Mr. Innes' representation that you have to speak to. Yeah. Sorry to be formal, but I'm afraid there is a procedure.
Okay, so speaking to Mr. Innes' representation, can I repeat the question? Silence and acceptance, not typical in law, but is that silence and acceptance?
Mr. Phipps, are you happy for him to ask you the question again?
Representation is set out. Yes, of course I am, Councillor, but if we could all turn to Appendix E and Mr. Innes' representation, please, you will see the representation reads as follows. There was no mention at all of this when the original plan was shown. We already have enough problems with people making noise late at night. Letting them open the bowl will only make the matter far worse. There's been no consideration at all of the residents of Blacklands or Northgate. The parking is already a disaster around here. This is only going to make matters worse. That's what Mr. Robbins can speak to. So Mr. Robbins' knowledge of the remoteness of other all-star venues isn't within Mr. Innes' representation, and so isn't something I can help with.
Fair enough. Are there any other?
But it does go to the point of people congregating which what Mark is alluding to, and I live opposite Mark at number 2, which I know is technically not part of my input here, but that is a fact. So what Mark is objecting to is the practice of young people of varying ages congregating in the space until the very early hours of the morning. Yeah, at the moment not fueled by alcohol. At the moment they are driving and using motor vehicles to enter, which would tend to indicate that their behaviour would be tempered, as they're not subject to the influence of alcohol. The concern is that, given the fact that you do not have to partake in anything other than the consumption of alcohol, people will gravitate from the other venues. When those venues close that are proximate, they will come to congregate in this venue as the last point of access to alcohol in the environment.
Yeah, hang on, Mark, can I just stop you a minute? Because is this going to be a question, or you could probably do this in your bit later on when you're coming up with your objections.
Okay, well then the question is to the council: is that been considered? That the contention from the applicant is that they have a lot of experience and a lot of references of conducting these kind of venues, and they don't particularly see people gravitating just for the consumption of alcohol. My question is to the council. Yeah?
Okay, the questions. So this is just questions at the moment for the applicants.
Okay, so I'll reserve that question.
And forgive me, may I answer the point?
Please
do. The point is, whilst we have people who consume alcohol in our premises, some of them late at night, some of them in good number, we don't have an antisocial behaviour problem that you're seeking to attribute to the grant of this licence. So no is the one-word answer. We don't have the problem that is being expressed as an anxiety.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other questions for Mr. Phipps, please? No. Okay, right. So we'll move on now for Caroline Leavy to present her objections. Go ahead, Caroline, please.
Morning. Mine is mainly, as Martin said, because I live at Blacklands as well, my house actually backs onto the Bury Fields. There is major concerns at the moment, like you said, with the children over in the park, and there are already people who go over there to congregate drinking. The other day I took my dog for a walk and there was actually drug addicts over there. We've had homeless people over there, and who actually stayed for a couple of weeks in a tent. I just do feel that having this sort of bar, which you say is a bowling alley, but after what you've said, I would not feel comfortable taking my niece or my grandson there, because it doesn't seem to be along the same lines as a Hollywood Bowl, that this is just going to attract more trouble that we get already. Like Martin said, we have children out there, teenagers, drinking in the park all the time, the boys doing wheel spins in there, and the parking is also a major issue, and vehicles have actually been vandalised down our road late at night. We have Admirals which put on food, and they have snooker tables, and they put football on. Malt Shovel does exactly the same, and I just do feel that having something like this so close to a residential area that is mainly consistent of elderly people and families is not the right environment. Serving alcohol for those hours is just, I think, enticing trouble. We also have a school nearby, which I'm not saying everyone would be like it, but you have got the risk then of people consuming too much alcohol and actually maybe fighting or being rowdy. We do also have, well, in my family, my daughter-in-law lives with me and she's a nurse, and my son's an engineer, and they both work shifts. Having live music through the week is not a consideration of the residents as well. And again, it's not a very family-friendly environment to be taking people. It's a quiet residential area. We have our numerous problems. Parking is one that we always raise with the council, and we always seem to get turned down. And we can't sort out the problems that we have with the children drinking in the park and that already. So how is this going to help us residents to iron out these problems? And would you like something like this within a stone's throw from your own house?
Lovely. Thank you, Caroline. Has anybody got any questions for Caroline? No? Okay, all gone quiet. So we'll move on to Mark Innes now to present his objections, please. Mark, or if you're assisted by Mr. Robbins, could you go ahead? Thank you.
Mark?
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
It's Mark Innes.
Brilliant.
Can I speak?
Yes, please go ahead. I'd
just like to reiterate what Caroline just said then. At the moment, everything is, I think people have been, it's difficult to express how bad things are at the moment there as far as things being out of control. Frustratingly to everybody that lives there, nobody, you said earlier on that the police haven't showed up at this meeting. Well, that about sums up the police's attitude to everything that's going on there at the moment. No interest whatsoever. I've rung 999 myself a few times over the last couple of months, reference to the noise and the things that are going on out there. And I know that the chap that's doing the planning is going to say that's nothing to do with him, but it's going to make the problem worse as far as people being able to drink, get alcohol, congregate outside. They're probably not concerned about what happens outside, but that's what the sort of thing that's going to affect us where we live. And it's already out of control now. And the vandalism that's been done around the area, people walking up from Angel Place, the back of there, I can imagine the councillors are forever getting reports of people having their windows smashed and things. And it's completely out of control, and nobody seems to show any interest in about doing anything about it, what we've got at the moment. So having people there drinking till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning just going to make matters worse. So the fact that there's a school opposite, the families with the children, elderly people that can't sleep night times now because of all the noise that's going on there, it's just going to make things a lot worse than it is already. So I don't think anybody on that meeting would like it outside their back door, so we certainly don't want it outside of our back door either, not till the 3 o'clock in the morning. So that's putting it politely.
Thank you for putting it politely. I hear where you're coming from. Have you got anybody got any questions for Mr. Innes?
Hello, Chair. Yeah, can I just it's Alan, sorry.
Hello,
just
Alan.
a point of clarity, because it was mentioned that the police aren't turning up. In terms of the procedure, the police have come to an agreed position, so they wouldn't be required to attend today's meeting on that basis. And obviously the agreed position is contained within Appendix J/L. Apologies again. Could I just ask the objector if any of the things that have been agreed in J would alleviate any of the fears that he has in view of what he's just said? So does the agreed position improve what could happen from his point of view? Because we've got to focus, I think, on what would happen in relation to the application, of course, rather than what happens now, annoying though that is, and I do appreciate that. Well, obviously the people that are going to control what goes on inside the building, maybe, but there's certainly, once people are leaving or coming and going, then they're not going to have any control of that, or probably not be too bothered about what happens outside. So that's as much as allowed music in the fact that they're going to have people there drinking all hours, but the fact of what happens outside as well and the way it attracts people is a big concern as well. So does that answer the question? I don't know. Yeah. I mean, my question was, does anything that was agreed alleviate the fears that you have? But I'm guessing from your reply, the answer is no. Is that correct? Or
not really? No, because I don't think people who are applying for it have got no idea about what's happening there at the moment. So nothing's going to change. If it get worse, I should imagine. Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Innes? Right, I don't think so. Thank you very much, Mr. Innes. So we've listened to everyone. We're going to come to a bit of a summing up and just run past you all. If anybody has anything else they'd like to add, I'll go now. So I'll start, Mark, because I think you're still on the line. Mark, have you got anything else you'd like to say? Mr. Inalls.
Well, no, I just that I'm a bit miffed about the fact that they can just say that it's not going to have an effect on the local area. I accept the fact that where we live, it comes with the fact that you've got a lot of passing people and one thing and another, but not to the point where they're going to build late night drinking venues right outside where they can't control what they've got already. So I can't see how they can say they can control more, just make matters worse. So that's me.
Okay, thank you very much. Caroline, Leavy, anything else you'd like to say, please?
Yeah, I would just like to agree with Martin as well. You know, we've all lived in the street for quite a long time. I moved here 2007, and just over the years, things have got progressively worse, and we don't tend to get listened to as residents. I'm all for new things coming to Bridgewater because I do think it's really gone downhill lately as a town. And if All Stars was somewhere else apart from at the bottom of my road, then you're all for it. But building that in a residential area, like I said before, with elderly and family residents, it's just not ideal. And I just do feel it would attract more trouble. We go into town knowing there's pubs in there, so it's sort of hand in hand, really, knowing that you are going to come across certain things like that, but you just don't expect it to take someone into the park and you got drug addicts weeing in the hedge or people drinking. And I just think this is going to attract more and more of the same, not because of All Stars, but because of where it is. Everyone likes to go out there sunbathing in the summer. I don't think it would be pleasant for parents picking their children up. I don't think it's the sort of thing that young children should really be exposed of. And again, no one's going to want to pay the parking. So now, us residents, we get parking tickets already because we can't park in our own street. The council ignore all our applications for parking permits to try and stop this. This is just going to add to more and more of the trouble. And people running up and down the street late at night as well, drunk. This is going to get worse, and more vandalisation on our cars and property is going to happen even more so. And it's even stupid things like chucking our food bins over the street and keying cars. And I just think this is just going to encourage it even more, especially with the younger ones who are over the park already. I just think it's going to just cause more and more problems for us.
Okay, thank you very much, Caroline. And to the applicant, so Matthew, would you like to sum up, please?
Thank you, Councillor. Look, just a couple of brief points, please. The first is just to flag that this is an application for a bowling premises where the first condition proposed on the licence is that it must operate as a 10-pin bowling centre with ancillary bar and catering facilities. That condition, let alone the other 23, is said to not a jot alleviate the anxieties of one of the objectors. I'm afraid that probably is the nub of the case. If it is fairly said that the 24 conditions that have been agreed with the police and have caused the police to withdraw and the environmental health to withdraw don't offer any comfort at all, then that must tell you something either that the application and the operating schedule is dreadful, or that perhaps the concerns that are being articulated are not as fair and proportionate, bearing in mind the nature of the proposal as they should be. Because licensing is all about fair, proportionate, reasonable balance when each application is considered on its individual merits. Is it reasonable to presume that the antisocial behavioural problems that are not for a moment challenging are there at the moment will continue and or get worse because of this application? I mean, I'm sorry, but we are at loggerheads at that point. No is the only thing that you can hear me say. our view is that the development as a whole is a really positive development for Bridgewater and for us. We're going to be part of that development, and the sort of issues about homeless, about drug addicts, drunkenness, vandalism, and so forth. Our view, and I entirely accept I've got any evidence for this, but our view is that we will be a force for positive change that will improve the area significantly. But that's probably and fairly, arguably, rather irrelevant. But if you look at some of the detailed issues that are raised against us, car parking is said to be an issue. If you look at the site plans that you had circulated by your officers, I haven't tried to count them on my screen, but there are a volume of car parking spaces provided for the restaurants, for the cinema, and for the bowling premises. So as a tiny microcosm or window into the nature of the objection, we'd respectfully suggest that it's change that is the big fear here. And our view is that the change is all positive, and that view seems fairly to be shared by both the police and by environmental health. And we say that in those circumstances, the only fair decision is to grant the application, to grant it with the conditions that restrict and control the way in which the premises can operate, and that both the hours and the proposals are perfectly good. Of course it is then, and let's not forget this, please, the last point from me, it is then beholden on us to deliver. And if we fail to deliver, if antisocial behaviour arrives because of our operation, then our licence can be taken off us, enforcement action can be undertaken. And I appreciate that's cumbersome and that's not necessarily what anybody wants, but that isn't what happens with our other premises, because we do take care, we do it responsibly, we do it properly. And the undercurrent of suggestion that we're not in any way responsible or caring about the way in which our premises interact, that, just to say, we can't accept that. That isn't right. Our premises operate well. We believe that this premises will operate well, and we look forward, all being well, to opening and trading it and making a success of it in due course.
Thank you very much. Are there any final questions from the panel or the legal officer?
Sorry, through you, Chair. I meant to ask Mr. Phipps the first time when I asked the questions. You're also applying for an off licence, I believe, on the premises. Is that correct? And if so, is it going to operate the full hours that you're open?
So yes, that is. Yes, that is part of the application. I mean, I think I'm bound to accept that's not a fundamental part of the application, but we tend to always apply for on and off sales. As you realise, government's recently deregulated all licences to include off sales as a part of all on sales permissions. So, we did it. I'd be lying if I told you I'd given that a great deal of thought before today. That's part of the application. We believe it's proper, but it's not the business driver here. I'd be happy to accept.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
Legal officer Nigel, have you got any questions at all?
No, I have no questions, Chair.
Okay, lovely. Well, thank you very much, everybody. This panel is now going to retire with the legal officer and the committee manager to make our decision. We'll be back as soon as we can. Thank you very much. Okay, the licensing panel today, this is our decision for the 24th of September 2020. The licensing and gambling panel has been asked to consider an application for a new premises license for the proposed premises to be known as All Stars Bowl, 5 Northgate Leisure Development, Bridgewater, Somerset, following objections from nearby residents. The panel has considered all the evidence presented by the applicant and objectors, both in person and in writing. The panel's decision is made in accordance with the Council's Statement of Licensing Policy, the Secretary of State's guidance, and current case law. The panel is advised that there are no formal objections to the application from the police or environmental health, as proposed conditions have been agreed with the applicant. The decision. The principal aim of the Licensing Act is to recognise the important role which licensed premises play in local communities, encouraging innovation and supporting responsible premises. Whilst the panel has considered the application on its merits, it is mindful that the premises forms part of a larger development on the Northgate site, as detailed in the plans circulated prior to the meeting. It is clear to the panel that the objectors are already experiencing some antisocial behaviour and disturbance in and around the Northgate site. This is largely due to the fact that at present it is a large unoccupied temporary car park, which ideally lends itself as a potential site for antisocial behaviour from gatherings of youths late at night. The panel considers that when development of the Northgate Leisure development site, of which All Stars is merely one part, it should hopefully reduce the noise, disturbance and general concerns of the residents. The panel recognises the objectors' understandable fears that the development of the Northgate site could bring noise, disturbance and antisocial behaviour, but there is no evidence that such issues would be generated by a licence granted to All Stars. The panel also acknowledges that in accordance with its own licensing policy, the licensing function cannot be used for the general control of antisocial behaviour beyond the direct control of the licensee. The panel is mindful that there is no objection from any of the responsible authorities as statutory consultees. In fact, the police and environmental health have agreed with the applicant's conditions, which may be added to any licence that they may be granted. Those conditions address the range of relevant criteria identified by prevention of crime and disorder and prevention of public nuisance objectives identified in the Council's statement of licensing policy. In addition, the panel is aware that the Northgate development site is covered by the Council's own digital CCTV system, which will complement and support the applicant's internal CCTV system. Whilst the concern of the objectors over the proximity of the licensed premises to the school is understandable, there is no evidence that this premises and this type of business in particular, as one of many potential licensed premises on the site, should, if properly managed in accordance with any licence granted, cause any public nuisance requiring special measures beyond those conditions already agreed with the applicant. The panel does not share the concern of the objectors that the access to alcohol via off-sales late night. The panel does share the concerns of the objectors that the access to alcohol via off-sales late into night could generate antisocial problems from drinking within the immediate area. It is clear to the panel that this aspect of the application is of limited value to the applicant, and therefore it is the belief of the panel that off-sales alcohol should be limited. Consequently, it is the decision of the panel that the application for a new premises licence at All Stars Bowl, 5 Northgate Development, Bridgewater, be granted, as requested, subject to a restriction on off-sales of alcohol to 2200 hours, 7 days a week, and the agreed conditions previously agreed with the police, environmental health, such terms being considered sufficient to promote the licensing objectives. Lovely. Thank you very much for all attending.